They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give themselves to me. Like clay I shall mould them, and in the furnace of war I shall forge them. They shall be of iron will and steely sinew. In great armour I shall clad them, and with the mightiest weapons shall they be armed. They will be untouchable by plague or disease. No sickness shall blight them. They shall have such tactics, strategies, and machines that no foe will best them in battle. They are my bulwark against the terror. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my Space Marines, and they shall know no fear.
Though this video is about Alpha Primus, a Space Marine far beyond any we have seen before, I feel it's all too important to begin with what Space Marines themselves are capable of, if only to act as a comparison as to truly understand the magnitude of what Alpha Primus really is. The Space Marines are by far some of the most powerful and deadly soldiers ever conceptualized in the great many tales of fiction that we are so lucky to be able to experience. Your average Space Marine stands anywhere between 7 to 8 feet tall and weighing in at around 340 kilograms. Transhumans enhanced to the point that feats such as being able to move objects as heavy as 5 tons, tearing through metal and throwing vehicles are well within their wheelhouse.
They were destructive. The firepower at their immediate disposal able to flatten urban blocks. With his bare hands gloved in ceramite, he could crush and pry open sheets of metal, maybe even support girders of a building. Tanks did not slow the Space Marines down. They clambered up on them, ripped off the Durasteel hatches as if they were made of paper, and dropped grenades into the interior. One of the Isvanian soldiers ran at him, shrieking and aflame, and pulled Demeter into an embrace. The captain let the flamer drop from his grip and ripped the man in two, tearing him apart effortlessly. He beat out the flames and grimaced as the rest of his troops waded in and finished the task.
And when I talk about enhancements, I really do mean it. The Emperor didn't mess around when it came to designing his Astartes. Space Marines have 12 additional organs compared to the average humans, starting off with a secondary heart. Phase 1 comes with a secondary heart. This allows the Marine to have their heart either damaged or destroyed and continue to survive, and even survive in low oxygen environments. Phase 2 is the osmodular, which is an organ that releases a hormone that improves the density and strength of the skeleton. Phase 3 has the Biscopia. This helps increase muscle mass, strength and growth, as well as support the later implants. In Phase 4 they have the Hemastomen. This improves oxygen capacity for the Space Marine's lungs, as well as supporting their prior implants. In Phase 6 they get the Catalespian node. This helps Astartes with fatigue, allowing half of their brain to sleep while the other half stays active. Phase 7, the Priamnor, a pre-stomach that neutralizes some of the most potent poisons. Phase 8, the Omophagia. This one is actually insane. It allows Astartes to gain the memories and experience of those they eat. The multi-lung in Phase 9 is an additional lung that helps Space Marines breathe in low oxygen environments as well as filter toxins. The oculobe in Phase 10 massively enhances the Space Marine's vision, even to the point of being able to see in extreme low light environments. In Phase 11 they get the Lyman's ear. This makes a Space Marine immune to motion sickness and dizziness, while also allowing them to focus on and pick out specific sounds. In Phase 12 they get the Susan membrane. With training, this allows the Space Marine to go into suspended animation in the event of a life-threatening or extreme wound. Phase 13 comes with the melanchromic organ. This releases melatonin to protect the Space Marine from high radiation and sunlight environments. Basically, they tan really fucking well. Those bastards. In Phase 14 is the Ulatic kidney. This makes a Space Marine immune to most poisons. Phase 15 is the neuroglottis. This enhances the Space Marine's sense of taste to the point that they can pick out individual chemicals and even track by taste. Phase 16 has the mushrenoid. This implant allows the Space Marine to sweat a substance that coats the skin and offers resistance to extreme heat and cold, and even provides some protection for the Marine in a vacuum. The Betcher's gland in Phase 17. This allows the Space Marine to spit a blinding poison that is also highly corrosive, while at the same time being immune to it themselves. Progenoids in Phase 18, this generates gene seeds which can then be removed and passed on to initiate Space Marines. And finally, in Phase 19 is the Black Carapace. Essentially, this is an armor that goes under the skin that allows them to interface with their power armor and receive the full benefits of it. So, if it were not obvious already, Firstborn Space Marines are not to be trifled with. If you're new to 40k, you'd probably just stop there and assume it is game over for anyone with the balls enough to stand against the Imperium of mankind. However, for those of us that have even a little knowledge on 40k, we know that Space Marines could be considered standard compared to the horrors of the Great Darkness that is the galaxy they live in. And to make a point of that, a quick go-over of the Primaris Space Marine.
Through the artifice of the Martian priesthood were these warriors created. By the grace of the Almighty Emperor are they given now to you. Silence your questions and instead rejoice at the honor done to you this day. You are handed the gift of hope by the immortal master of mankind himself, and you will accept it with sincere and solemn gratitude lest you be taken for the traitors you profess to hate.
Primaris Space Marines stand anywhere between 8 to 10 feet tall and weigh between 400 and 450 kilograms. With only an additional 3 organs implemented into the Primaris Space Marine, they are consistently stated as being considerably stronger than your average Astartes. And though there are cases of Primaris Space Marines getting their asses handed to them by Firstborn Space Marines, Primaris as a standard are much stronger. The 3 additional organs that are given to Primaris Space Marines start as such. The sinew coils. The sinews in the Marine are reinforced with the durametallic coil cables that can contract with incredible force, magnifying the strength as well as giving the body another layer of defense. The Magnificat, a small thumbnail-sized lobe that is inserted into the brain's cortex. The Magnificat secretes hormones that increase the body's growth functions while also intensifying the functions of other transhuman implants, especially those of the Biscopia and the Osmodula. The Belisarian Furnace. This is a dormant organ that connects both the Astartes' hearts. In times of extreme stress or should the warrior's body undergo violent damaging trauma, it expels great blurts of self-synthesized chemicals. A hypercocktail that stimulates the biological actions of combat stims while also aiding in the rapid regrowth of tissue, bone and muscle. So, who is Alpha Primus? Really? Belisarius Cawl has created Alpha Primus as an attempt to make a Primarch, with the goal of learning from this and reverse engineering him in order to create a higher class of Astartes, in this case, the aforementioned Primaris Space Marines. Though this goal worked, I feel like something greater is at work here, and intentionally by Cawl's design. Alpha Primus is often stated as massive in comparison to the average Astartes and even Primaris. Even if we are only comparing him to the likes of a standard Space Marine, to be considered massive in comparison to 7 to 8 foot tall war machines is certainly not a throwaway comment.
Alpha Primus was like no other Space Marine he had seen. He was huge, even by Primaris standards, and a strange-looking individual in many other ways. There was a coppery sheen to his pale, horribly scarred skin. His eyes were black with just a hint of white around the huge pupils. His habitually shaved head and chin were dark with fast-growing stubble. There was an air of great potency around him that set Felix on guard whenever they met. Primus crept as well as an 8-foot-tall warrior in power armor could through the station. His suit was of intercessor type, tooled for direct confrontation rather than stealth, yet he moved quietly enough. He checked his bolt pistol and loosened his chainsaw before dealing with the door. Other psychos preferred force weapons, but Primaris did not care for them. He was physically strong enough to put the chainsaw through the bulkhead if need be.
From these passages, we can get a pretty good look at what Alpha Primus is like in the flesh. The coppery sheen to his skin, a nod to the fact that he has been infused with gene seed from Magnus, though if that didn't make it obvious enough, his insanely high level of psychic powers would. We can also see here that more likely than not he has Mark X intercessor armor as well as a similar war gear. I would even imagine that as a creation of Khal, he'd have war gear and equipment with something a little extra, something above what a regular Primaris would get, especially with how important he is to Khal. Though without a chapter banner to fly, his armour has been left blank without any form of design.
The warrior was heavily scarred, appearing cut up and stuck back together in haste. His armour bore no heraldry, but was pale, unpainted gunmetal grey of raw ceramite.
Alpha Primus has been infused with some, potentially all, of the Primarch's abilities. With such a powerful character in the setting, I'd imagine we'll see more of Alpha Primus, and at that, more opportunity for him to shine and possibly display more of these gifts of the Primarchs.
It is a dimensional mirror, said Alpha Primus. We see a representation of reality as it might have been, had fate taken another course. Felix noted that there was no Alpha Primus on the far side. He peered around and saw there were more Space Marines in his stead stood in guard around Khal. They were all in grey armour and numbered 20 in total. Look away from it, said Alpha Primus. I can feel agitation. Step back and the vision will fade. You know this because of Khal, said Colonus, who turned away. Primus nodded. Khal teaches me many things. He made me for these eventualities. He drew in a sharp, pained breath. Quickly, we peer through barriers not meant to be breached. It is not the warp, said Gaffian, fascinated. It is not any place. It is a glimpse of different possibilities, said Primus. Other ways things might have been.
From these quotes, we can see that in another reality, it looks like instead of infusing all 20 gene seeds into a being that is Alpha Primus, Khal possibly tried to start up all 20 legions again. In another reality, the concept of Alpha Primus is 20 separate beings, which heavily implies that in this reality, he is all 20 legions hosted by one. Though, due to flaws in the creation process, he is quoted as saying he is constantly in physical pain all throughout his body.
I hurt, Primus interrupted. Everywhere. My dreams are black. My soul is shackled by another man's ideal. I see more and know more than any human being ever should. In creating me, Khal tried to match the Emperor's achievements. It did not work. I pay for his arrogance every second of every day. I tell you because you should know that the Archmagus Dominus talents are not infinite. I am your prototype, and living evidence of his overreach.
His psychic powers outclass those of any scene performed by a Space Marine Librarian. Even with Space Marine Librarians such as Tigurius, the chief librarian of the Ultramarines, running around one-manning Roticus, the avatar of Nurgle, Primus is still deemed greater than that. As for Alpha Primus's age, I've been having a hard time finding anything concrete on that, but there seems to be a mutual consensus on the ever-reliable internet that he is around 10,000 years old. So, not only is he insanely strong, given possibly every Legion's gene seed, and psychically gifted, he also might have 10,000 years of experience under his belt. All of the above leads me to think of a theory on what Alpha Primus actually is. There are a few theories out there I've seen speculating on the true identity of Alpha Primus. The one I want to focus on today is that he is a clone. But, a clone of who? Fabius Bile has been noted to have been impressed by Alpha Primus, which is an interesting statement. He doesn't even think twice about Primarch clones he has encountered, yet here he is impressed by a Primaris Space Marine prototype. Fabius Bile has in-depth mastery of cloning, likely beyond anyone in the current setting. What if he is looking at a clone? Or perhaps something considerably more terrifying. You've guessed it, a clone of the Emperor of mankind. A being of power beyond that of his peers, infused with gene seed of every single legion, psycho powers far beyond any other Astartes, and finally a parallel that seems all too poetic to ignore. 10,000 years of living in constant pain. All of these things sound all too familiar. Alpha Primus has been gifted many things in his creation. In a universe of powers beyond imagining, things beyond understanding, and a vastness that leaves us ever wondering, there is one thing that defines many driving character forces that inhabit the 40k universe, and that is ego. Belisarius Cawl is undoubtedly a man of massive ego. Right or wrong, he infallibly believes that he knows best. He openly battles the rules set in place by the Imperium. Even if they are backward and pointless rules, he still sees himself as above them. So, something so daunting, dangerous, and absurd as cloning the Emperor? Honestly, I believe the moment the thought came to Belisarius Cawl's mind, he got to work. Now, Cawl claims Alpha Primus as his son and to have added himself to Alpha Primus's concoction. If Alpha Primus actually is an attempt at an Emperor clone, then this alone is proof of Cawl's ego. Believing he could improve on the Emperor not only in creation but by adding a part of himself to this being. Believing that without a moment's hesitation that adding himself to this chimera of an Astartes is indeed an improvement. I'll end this video on a final excerpt from the books.
Why did you really call me? To warn you, and the giant shrugged. Boredom, loneliness, but mostly to warn you. He took a weary breath. To each of his sons, the Emperor gave some of his gifts. I doubt any one being other than he could contain such power in its entirety. To each of the sons of those sons, a portion of those gifts were passed on in turn. I have several of these gifts, as many as Cawl dared to give me. I have called you, Captain Messinius, to show you myself. I am living proof that Cawl cannot be trusted.
Thank you very much everyone for watching this video. I hope it was both entertaining and informative and you enjoyed it whether you were listening while you paint, game, or whatever it is you do while on YouTube. If you did enjoy the video and would like to see more, please like and subscribe to feed the algorithm gods. And feel free to start a conversation in the comments section. All feedback is also very much appreciated. I also have a link to my Patreon in the description should you wish to support the channel for only £1 a month. Thanks again my friends, and ta for now.